The festive Drink Drive campaign is underway, and the message is drink safe, drive safe and act safe, and with the Chief Constable Gary Roberts. Now, you said earlier at the presentation that you had to confess you're not a fan of one-off campaigns. How is this one different?
This one's very different because it's a collaboration between the police, the Department of Health and Social Care and the Department of Infrastructure, and the messages are different. In the past we've simply said, don't drink and drive. If you drink and drive, we'll catch you and you'll go to prison perhaps. This one is much more about the longer term stuff. It's asking people to take responsibility for the consequences. So think, you can drink and have a good time, but think about what you're doing and think about the consequences of how you go about your drinking. And so we're looking at things like health and the long-term effects of drinking. We're looking at domestic violence. We're looking at how people lose things like their phones and their keys, and that has a big impact on their lives. So it's not just about drink driving, although drink driving does remain a particular focus of the campaign.
And this will be one of your busiest times of year, won't it, the festive period?
The Constabulary's had a very busy 3 or 4 months. We've been flat out now for a while, and we don't expect it to be any different. And that's why it's important that people take responsibility themselves, so that if they have a lot to drink, they don't need to get into fights. They don't need to go home and abuse their partners. They don't need to get into their car and drive. They simply need to drink sensibly and carefully and think safe all the time.
Are there any areas where there is a particular problem? I'm thinking, for example, of people who drink and then drive the next day, not realising that they're over the limit.
People who drink in the mornings, who've drunk a lot the night before, still run the risk of being over the limit, and people really need carefully to think about that. What we notice as well is that men, particularly in the sort of 50-60 age group, seem to think they're all right to drink and drive, and they're not. And even though the Constabulary's smaller than it was this time last year, we'll still have a lot of people out there who will be on the roads, and we'll catch people who are drinking and driving.
And are there any areas where there is a particular problem?
I don't think there are any areas, but places where there are pubs and bars and nightclubs, they will be busy, and the police will be visible and will be effective, as we usually are, and we'll make a difference. But individuals have the responsibility themselves to make the right decisions, and if those decisions are not to have as much as they would have had, or to be very careful about how they handle their drink, what they do with their possessions, and also not get lured into fights. So back down if you have to. And just keep thinking safe.